When we think of Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, images of glittering stage performances, iconic music videos, and a larger-than-life personality come to mind. But behind the glamour and the fame, there was a man struggling with demons no one saw. Enter Dr. George Nichopoulos, a man who wasn't just Elvis's doctor but his closest friend, confidant, and mentor. His story is one of kindness, compassion, and a deep love for a man who changed the world, but also a tale that challenges the myths we thought we knew. Dr. Nichopoulos, known to fans as Dr. Nick, was more than just a physician to Elvis. He was there through thick and thin, helping to save the king's life on more than one occasion. To understand Dr. Nick's story is to peel back the layers of Elvis's public persona and see the real person underneath. A person who was both a brilliant artist and a complex human being. Jerry Lee Lewis, the rock and roll legend, once described Dr. Nick as one of the kindest men I know. His words echo the sentiments of many who crossed paths with Dr. Nichopoulos. For Dr. Nick, helping Elvis was not just a job, it was a calling. He saw beyond the fame to a man in pain, struggling with addiction and the pressures of stardom. Dr. Nick's compassion was unwavering, his friendship genuine. Dr. Nichopoulos' relationship with Elvis began in the late 1950s, a time when Elvis was just starting to make waves in the music world. From the moment Dr. Nick entered Elvis's life, he was drawn to the king's raw talent and kind heart. But it was during Elvis's darkest hours, when addiction threatened to consume him, that Dr. Nick's true friendship shone through. Many stories about Elvis focus on his excesses, his struggles with drugs, and his untimely death. But Dr. Nichopoulos' memoir offers a different perspective. It's a story of hope, of a man who tried to help his friend see a way out of the darkness. Dr. Nick was not just a doctor, he was a mentor, a friend who listened, and someone who loved Elvis for who he was, beyond the spotlight. In an era when addiction was a taboo subject, Dr. Nick was one of the few who understood the complexities of Elvis's battle. He was a voice of reason, a steady hand in a storm of chaos. His account challenges the simplistic narratives that have defined Elvis's story, offering instead a nuanced view of a man caught between his art and his demons. For those who have read other accounts of Elvis's life, Dr. Nichopoulos' memoir offers a fresh perspective. It's not just about the music or the fame, it's about the human side of Elvis, the man who laughed, who loved, and who suffered. Dr. Nick's story is a reminder that behind every icon, there's a person with hopes, fears, and vulnerabilities. In an interview, Andrew Hearn, editor and publisher of Essential Elvis UK magazine, described the book as unbending your mind and filling in many gaps regarding an incredibly close friendship. It's a testament to the power of Dr. Nick's story, one that challenges readers to see Elvis and perhaps themselves in a new light. Dr. Nichopoulos' memoir is not just a tribute to Elvis, it's a testament to the power of friendship, the importance of compassion, and the enduring human spirit. It's a story that will linger long after the final page is turned, inviting readers to reflect on the complexities of fame, the value of true friendship, and the legacy of a king who touched so many lives. Dr. George Nichopoulos, known affectionately as Dr. Nick, had a unique and personal connection with Elvis Presley, a bond that spanned decades and went far beyond the typical doctor-patient relationship. To understand Dr. Nick's story, one must first look back at how it all began. It was 1964, and Dr. Nick was working at St. Joseph Hospital in Memphis. A young man, just 20 years old, walked into the emergency room with a painful infection. Scared and alone, he found solace in the gentle hands of Dr. Nick. The doctor, with his soft-spoken demeanor and intuitive approach, managed to ease the young man's fears and treat his infection. From that moment, Dr. Nick became more than just a doctor to this young patient. He became Dr. Nick, a trusted friend. Years later, when the young man's daughter, Kimberly, faced a serious medical challenge, Dr. Nick was there again. He didn't shy away from the challenge. Instead, he dove in headfirst, researching tirelessly to find the best solution. His dedication led them to a program in San Diego that changed Kimberly's life, bringing her health back on track. Dr. Nick's ability to connect with people, to understand their struggles and offer hope, was evident in every interaction. Dr. Nick's relationship with Elvis was no different. Over the years, he became Elvis's personal physician, a role that required more than just medical knowledge. Dr. Nick had to navigate the complex world of Elvis's fame, where health often took a backseat to the demands of stardom. But Dr. Nick remained steadfast, always putting Elvis's well-being first. One memorable trip to Chicago illustrates Dr. Nick's commitment. After a concert, while Elvis relaxed in his suite, Dr. Nick found himself alone with the king. Elvis, in his unassuming state, watched TV and made a comment that upset Dr. Nick. Feeling uncomfortable, he excused himself to the hotel coffee shop. There he picked up a book and read, Lost in Another World. Later on the plane, Elvis approached Dr. Nick, fascinated by the book. Dr. Nick shared it with Elvis, who read it aloud to the entire group, bringing laughter and joy to everyone around them. In that moment, Dr. Nick saw something profound: Elvis's humility and love for simple pleasures. It was a glimpse into the man behind the myth, a man who, despite his fame, remained down to earth and appreciative of the little things. Dr. Nick's friendship with Elvis was not without its challenges. There were long tour, grueling schedules, and sometimes people around Elvis who didn't have his best interests at heart. Yet Dr. Nick stayed, driven by his loyalty and love for Elvis. He saw firsthand how Elvis's fame could be both a blessing and a curse, how it could enrich lives but also complicate them. To those who knew Dr. Nick and Elvis, it's clear that their friendship was special. Dr. Nick wasn't just a doctor to Elvis, he was a friend, a confidant, and a pillar of support. Elvis knew this, and he valued Dr. Nick's unwavering dedication. Even when the pressures of fame threatened to pull Elvis away from his practice, Dr. Nick remained a constant in a world of constant change. Elvis, in his own way, appreciated Dr. Nick's selflessness. He saw how Dr. Nick put his patients first, even when it meant giving up his own desires. This respect and admiration ran deep. Dr. Nick's ability to care, to listen, and to heal went beyond medicine. It was a way of life. As we reflect on the lives of Elvis and Dr. Nick, it's easy to get caught up in the headlines and the myths that surround them. But at the heart of their story is a simple, powerful truth: the bond between two men, forged in adversity and strengthened by their shared humanity. Dr. Nick's story is not just about Elvis, it's about the impact one person can have on another's life, about the power of friendship and the enduring legacy of kindness and compassion. On that autumn day in 1977, Dr. Nick Nichopoulos found himself in a situation he had never imagined. As a doctor, he had seen many things, but nothing prepared him for the call that came in the middle of the day, telling him something serious had happened to Elvis Presley. Elvis was not just any patient, he was a legend, a king of music, and for Dr. Nick, a friend. Dr. Nick quickly got in his car, knowing he had to get to Graceland, Elvis's home, as fast as he could. He had worked with Elvis before, helping him with his health, and knew he was usually in good shape, but this time was different. Joe Esposito, Elvis's road manager, was frantic on the phone, saying Elvis might have had a heart attack. As Dr. Nick sped towards Graceland, his mind raced. He thought about Elvis's recent visit, where he seemed nervous but okay after a toothache. He also recalled a time when Elvis needed CPR after playing racquetball. Could this be related? Dr. Nick knew Elvis had been on a strict diet, which might have led to dehydration. That could cause big problems like a drop in potassium levels, which could lead to a heart issue. When Dr. Nick arrived, the sight of the ambulance outside Graceland's gates told him this was serious. He rushed to where Elvis was, finding him on a gurney inside the ambulance. The sound of the ambulance's engine made it hard to hear, but Dr. Nick knew every moment counted. Inside the ambulance, Dr. Nick joined Charlie Hodge, Elvis's friend, and Joe. They all worked together trying to help Elvis. Dr. Nick knew he had to act fast. He assessed Elvis quickly, thinking about everything he knew about heart problems and how to treat them. He remembered doing CPR before, but this was different. This was Elvis. With Elvis's body on the gurney, they rushed to get him to proper medical care. Dr. Nick's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts about Elvis's health, his career, and what this meant for both of them, but he focused on the task at hand. His training kicked in, and he guided the team to ensure Elvis received the best care possible. At the hospital, more doctors joined in, each bringing their expertise. Together, they worked tirelessly to stabilize Elvis. It was a long and tense night. Dr. Nick felt a mix of fear and determination. He had to be strong for Elvis, for himself, and for everyone who looked up to both of them. In the end, it was a close call. Elvis was stable but needed time to recover. Dr. Nick stayed by his side, offering support and guidance through the long hours of treatment. This experience changed Dr. Nick too. He saw Elvis not just as a patient or a star, but as a person, vulnerable and human. After Elvis recovered, Dr. Nick reflected on that day. He realized how close they had come to losing a friend and a legend. It made him appreciate the bond they shared even more. For fans and friends alike, it was a reminder of Elvis's humanity and the challenges even the greatest among us face. For Dr. Nick, it was a day that solidified his respect for Elvis and taught him valuable lessons about life, health, and the importance of being there for those we care about. As he looked back, he knew that day changed him, just as it would continue to change the way people saw Elvis and himself. In the end, Elvis's story became richer, more complex, and more inspiring. It showed that behind the glitz and glamour, legends are made of the same stuff as everyone else. And sometimes, it takes a crisis to truly understand and appreciate the bonds we share with those who light up our lives.